To me, it made sense. Like, why not save a whole bunch of money on taxes, get incredible returns, and actually spend less time doing it as opposed to what I was trying to do in real estate?
What is up, Fractionalized fam? So happy you guys are here and so excited to get into this first episode of Fractionalize, where we have a special guest, Ryan Treulieb. He's actually a member of the investment group Fractionalize, where we utilize fractional real estate to actually invest into real estate, be landlords without having to deal with all the headaches. And we're going to go get into that, go into how his experience with Mogul, with Fractionalize has been, and kind of how he actually was able to fund a lot of his investments. All right, now let's go get into it.
I just want to introduce everyone to Ryan Treulieb, one of my great friends. Thank you for being on here, my man. I really appreciate you and really appreciate your time as well. Hey, man, so I just wanted to first, just let everyone know a little bit about your background, how you kind of strolled into real estate,
Yeah, absolutely. Vincent, thank you so much for taking the time for this podcast. This is awesome. So I started in real estate about a year ago. My full-time job, I'm an attorney in the state of Florida, and I wanted something that would supplement that income, maybe eventually do real estate full-time, and seeing what kind of avenue I could take to help me with that. And so I came across several different real estate groups. The one that I ultimately went with was by a big guy in real estate. His name is Pace Morby. Those that don't know about Pace Morby, he's a real estate investor, and he helps out a lot of people. He has his own community. He helps out a lot of people with off-market deals and different ways to buy, to sell, and do investment strategies. So one of the groups that I joined from him was specifically in the lending side. Those are private money lenders or people that help fund these real estate deals. So they don't necessarily buy the investment property, but they are the money man. And I figured it was a great way to start with real estate because it's a little bit more on the passive side. It's something I felt like I could do part-time, delve into real estate full-time just yet. I just wanted to get my feet wet and see how it goes. And then throughout the community, I met you and a whole bunch of other people. And it's just been absolutely life-changing, for sure. And it's something that I still do to this day, the lending aspect of it. And that's really what kind of led me to Mogul.
Nice, man. So with lending, what was that experience? Obviously, I was doing short-term lending as well. I know that's kind of how we met, right? Because I would get a deal, I would go to you and it'd be like, hey man, is this a good deal? Pick your brain a little bit, like how can we make this work? What was that experience for you? Before you hopped on with Mogul and started investing in fractional real estate.
Yeah, so it's still great. It's still part of my portfolio. I'm not as on top of it as I was before, and that's just a personal preference. I would prefer to actually buy property, which is why Mogul has been amazing. So my experience with lending, there's been ups and downs. It's something that you definitely got to be careful with, making sure you look over the deal, you do the underwriting, you do the comps on the property, and that you vet out the borrower. And so there is a lot into it, and it wasn't as passive as I thought. I'm really looking for something that's passive because I have my regular 9-to-5 gig. I'm married, I have 2 kids, so I really wanted to try to find something that was passive. And with the private money lending, it's been great and all, and I've built up a great network, but it still was a little bit of a grind. And so when I came across Mogul, I saw how passive it is. Not only how great it is to be a passive investor, but then also the returns were great. And throughout Mogul, some of the returns are even better than what you can get with private money lending, with less risk, and you actually can have more tax benefits as well, as opposed to just lending out, just be in debt or a potential equity partner. You can actually own a property and have great tax benefits. And to me, it was a no-brainer that Mogul and fractional investing should be a major part of my portfolio. Like I said, I still do the private money lending on the side, but it's with a very small group of people who I've networked with and who I do trust. And so it's a very, very small part of it. But that is a lot more work than the Mogul side of it. So that's why I'm really making that transition to doing more with Mogul and with the group, the fractional.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. Like lending, like a lot of people get into Gator or transactional lending, and like they think it's gonna be a breeze. And I will be honest, like I was one of those people that was just like I thought I was gonna be pretty, smooth sailing, but it's a lot of work. Like you don't really realize that before you actually get into the game. That's how much work it is. Having to find the wholesalers and actually good wholesalers that have good deals, and it's a risky game. When I like you said, when I found Mogul too, like seeing that it was more passive, something that regardless if I knew everything or I didn't know anything, it was something I could do and build a portfolio, actually invest into real estate. So that's really cool, man. Thanks for sharing about that. I mean, so obviously, I introduced you to fractional real estate, but like, what was that thing that you saw, or like how did I introduce you? Like what made you contact me? Because you actually contacted me about it, but like what was that thing that made you contact me about fractional real estate?
So I knew about the concept before I even met you, but I never really delved into it. Before I was an attorney, I was a stockbroker and a financial advisor, and I used to work at Fidelity Investments and Merrill Lynch as well. And so I was already familiar with certain types of investments, mutual funds, for instance, or exchange traded funds. And you can do fractional investing with stocks as well. You could buy a fraction of Apple stock instead of buying the whole stock. They do have that as an available investment. So I knew about the concept, but I never really delved into it with real estate. And it was perfect timing. I saw one of your videos. I don't remember if it was on Facebook or if it was on Instagram, but I saw one of your videos talking about it. And it was during that time when I tried wholesaling in real estate. I've tried multifamily. I've tried fix and flip. I've tried a number of different strategies. And I came to realize all those strategies, it took a lot of time. I mean, even trying to do it on a part-time basis, I was still super busy. I barely had time with the kids and the wife, and it took way too much out of me, and it started affecting my W-2 job. And so when I saw your video, I was just like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I want to learn more about it. And so you talked about Mogul. I went on the Mogul website, and the Mogul website is phenomenal, talking about the benefits, all the tax benefits, how passive it is with the returns. I didn't know about a lot of those benefits that you could have as far as fractional investing. And to me, it made sense. Like, why not save a whole bunch of money on taxes, get incredible returns, and actually spend less time doing it as opposed to what I was trying to do in real estate? Now, granted, you can make a ton of money in wholesaling. You can make a ton of money in fix and flipping, but you are spending a ton of time with that. And it wasn't something I wanted to do at this current stage. Especially my kids are 5 and 3. And so right after work, the first thing I want to do is spend time with them and spend time with my wife. So I just knew I didn't want to do fix and flipping and wholesale, and I didn't want to build a team. I know I could do that later on if I wanted to, but I could still get great returns now with Mogul and fractional investing and still set up that legacy. I love my job. I love my boss. I love the benefits that I get. And so to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not in an immediate rush to leave my job. In fact, I really enjoy my job. As I was saying before, it's incredible. I didn't have that drive to say, hey, I need to quit my job, go full-time into real estate, and I'm just going to do this for 6 months. The exact opposite. I just think real estate is just going to add to it. And then down the road, if I really grow it enough, I could look into it. But I'm just really not motivated to do that since Mogul is able to do everything that I'm looking for. That part-time, amazing returns, and those tax benefits. And so that's really like, coming across your video, it literally was a perfect time. And that's something I was looking for. I was always wondering, what can I do on a part-time basis? What can I really do that's passive and get great returns? And that is less risk than private money lending or wholesaling or, spending that time doing that. And it just, to me, it was just, for my circumstances, it really was a perfect solution. It was a no-brainer.
I really like that, because it's like one of my reasons for pursuing fractional real estate and making this something that's my main focus is, helping people be able to really like focus on what matters to them in life, not having to, just be like, oh, I got to take all this time and go, gung ho on wholesaling or flipping, because it's time consuming. It's a full-time job, So, I really like that you saw that as the opportunity to, build a portfolio, build in real estate, but still be able to just do what matters to you, work your job that you still like, be with your family. And then you mentioned, the benefits, right? Obviously, real estate is, you get tax benefits in real estate, and there's a lot of other, there's other passive ways to make money in real estate, like REITs as an example. But like those, the returns might not be as great, but the big thing is like they don't pass over tax benefits. Mogul passes on all those benefits to their members, to their investors. So that was one big thing as well. Like you're basically a landlord without having to do landlord duties. So you're getting all those benefits without having to actually go out, acquire, manage, deal with those headaches. So
of taxes, depending on the type of capital gains that you have and the rental income, but also just a lot of deductions that I'm getting for expenses. I have a CPA and he's helped me do a lot of deductions with my cell phone, my internet, everything, because I'm running a business from my home with the LLC. And I have my private money lending business as well. But not only am I getting great returns that are taxed at a better rate than like a short-term gain and another type of investment, but I'm getting tax deductions as well from my expenses. And that has been absolutely huge. And anyone can do that. And what's amazing with Mogul and fractional investing in general, but specifically Mogul, is all it takes is $250 for a minimum investment. And so I've talked to my family and my friends about it, and they've actually joined your group, Fractionalize, because they say, hey, I could literally invest as little as $250, set up an LLC for a couple of hundred, and now I'm able to write off a lot of my taxes because I'm a business owner. And I'm using certain expenses for that business, like internet, cell phone, whatever the case is. And it's amazing, because a lot of people are afraid to start a small business. They're thinking it's going to be so time consuming or it's a lot of money to start it. They don't know what to do. But they could literally, just with Mogul, $250, set up the LLC, and that's a start right there. And you can't get that with stocks, those kind of benefits. And the volatility, is pretty ridiculous in the stock market, especially, you're doing this podcast now, and right now, what's going on with Trump and the tariffs and everything that's going on with the economy, it's a roller coaster right now, for good or for bad. But with the fractional investing, you got that monthly income, and studies show that over time, real estate does tend to go up. And so, like I said earlier, I think it's a no-brainer.
Exactly. Pointing out stocks, like there's tons of volatility. Right now there's a lot of volatility due to, Trump's announcements with tariffs, and, they're doing it now, they're reversing it and putting 9-day hold and all that kind of stuff. Real estate tends to be much more stable. Yeah, there's good times, there's bad times, but, it's over a period of time, it's much more stable, and bringing the cash flow, monthly income, like that's amazing with real estate. That's one of the reasons why I want to, own properties, and this gives me the ability to do that a lot easier. So, gives us that ability to own, 5 properties, in different markets, with different types of returns, a lot easier. Where if we're doing it traditionally, we're having to go out and find those properties in the perfect market and negotiate with that seller, and maybe we get it, maybe we don't, and then we buy it, and who knows what the case is with the property at that point. Maybe we find something that we didn't know about. There's so much stuff that can happen. So this is definitely a much more conservative way to do it, but still like great returns. To me, it's like almost too good to be true, because it's because of that reason. Like hearing the stories, that I've heard about real estate investing, obviously there's a lot of great to it, but there's a lot of cons to it as well. With Mogul, I'm not saying it's perfect, obviously, and there's no cons, but like it's almost too good to be true in my mind, just like the advantages and, how like sit back it is. And
sorry to be jumping in the middle of the episode, guys, but if you guys are wanting to get into fractional real estate, be able to invest in real estate with minimum capital, get cash on cash yields, appreciation, tax benefits, basically be a landlord without all the landlord headaches, go ahead and click the link in the show notes to get onto the waiting list to join Fractionalize, because Fractionalize isn't only an investment group, but we pay you for just investing smart in real estate. You heard that right. This is a community where you don't pay a subscription. You actually get paid to be there and invest into real estate. So you're already making money investing in real estate. Now you're making money just being a part of a movement, Fractionalize. So go ahead and go in the show notes, click to join the waiting list so that you can be one of the first members when we launch on May 1st. Now let's get back to the episode.
So I know you mentioned like your CPA, right? And how and you were speaking with him to kind of figure some stuff out. So I know that you obviously invested one through like your main income through your bank account, but there was also another strategy that you used, another resource that you used. I just wanted you to just kind of mention that and kind of tell us what that looked like. I know it's a little bit of a process with us doing it for the first time together.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was able to use a retirement account. I have a self-directed IRA account, specifically a Roth account, so it's after tax. Now, full disclosure, I'm not an accountant, and even though I'm an attorney, I'm not giving legal advice. I'll definitely speak to your own accountant and your own attorney.
100%.
But what I'm able to do, and what anyone really can do if they have a self-directed IRA account, is they could use money in that self-directed IRA for purchasing real estate and lending on real estate as well. And you could do it with Mogul. And so you don't have to use all of your money in your IRA for one property and try to take out a loan, for the remaining amount. Like I was saying before, you could use $250 from your IRA and be invested into a property. And so it's very important, if you want to do that, to number one, you got to make sure that your IRA is with a company that can do real estate. Some companies, some IRA companies or custodians, they don't do that. So you got to double check. There's plenty of companies out there. So you would want to just make sure that they're able to do that and find out their process too. Before you take out any money, find out the process of what it takes to invest in real estate. A lot of times it's a form that you have to fill out online. And so what I did is I was able to get the form, understand the process, and then also speak to Mogul as well. Representatives from Mogul, let them know that I want to invest with my IRA in certain properties. And when I spoke to my CPA, once again, this is not advice for everyone, but I felt like it was best that whatever property I want to invest into with my IRA, for that particular property, I would only use funds from my IRA. So I wouldn't, if I saw a property, I wouldn't do half of my money from my IRA and then half from my regular bank account. Because I was afraid that things would get commingled when I would get my monthly checks. I don't want, to try to figure out, okay, how much is going back into my IRA, how much is going to my bank account. So to me, it made a lot more sense. If I saw one of the properties, the Johnson, I'm only going to invest my IRA in the Johnson. I'm not going to use my bank account to invest in the Johnson. And it makes it a lot cleaner and easier because you could run into tax issues if you start commingling, if money doesn't go back into the IRA. It would just be a headache for the accountant, and you don't want to deal with that. And so through the advice of my CPA and through Mogul and a custodian, 3 different people, I made sure I was doing it the best way possible. And it actually is a pretty simple process. Some IRA custodians are more complicated than others. At the end of the day, it's just making sure you have the right paperwork in place and making sure you fill it out correctly. But after you do it the first time, second time, you pretty much got a grasp for it. And what's awesome about Mogul too is I told them that, hey, I want to use my IRA to fund it. It may take a couple of days. So they held on to my investment. They didn't say, Ryan, you need to fund within 24 hours. They blocked out a certain amount of money for me. I was still able to retain my spot while I'm dealing with the paperwork for my IRA custodian. So as long as you have that communication, they could reserve your spot as you're dealing with the paperwork and making sure everything checks out. And so I'm super grateful. They held my spot knowing that I'm going to use my IRA. I didn't lose out on anything because it takes a couple of days from the IRA. So that's been very, very helpful. I would definitely recommend, if anyone has money sitting in an IRA or an old 401k, to consider using that money for the real estate. And knowing that you could speak to Mogul, you could speak to representatives, you could secure that spot as you get everything situated, and using your IRA account. You don't have to try to save up money from your regular W-2 job. You don't have to borrow money. You can use money that you already have, get in returns, and that are just as good as the stock market, even sometimes better, with less volatility. So, it's definitely a possible option. And like I said, you could even just start with $250. You don't have to put all your eggs into one basket. And you could diversify too. You could do $500 in one property, $500 in another property. Short-term rental, mid-term rental. So there's ways to diversify even within fractional investing, which has been absolutely amazing. It's a game changer.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'll just reiterate that if you're using IRAs, the money that you're earning from that has to go back to your IRA, and then like, and also you're saying you can diversify. So like in traditional real estate, you say you you get a property. Say this just make numbers easy. So it's $100,000 property, and you have to put 20% down. So you're putting down 20 grand on one property. Fractional real estate, you can split that 20 grand between however many properties you want, as long as the minimum is $250. So like I was saying before, market exposure in different places, different types of properties that are Airbnbs or a pad split, different strategies for whatever really is what the investor wants. If you're more appealed to Airbnbs, you can go that route. More appealed to pad splits, you can go that route. It's really, it's in your hands, really, right? You have the control over it, and what you want to do, and how you want to set up your portfolio to best benefit you for the future. So, and I really like that you mentioned that we were willing to work with you guys, make sure that you guys are taken care of. Our founders, Alex and Joey, like they say that Mogul is made by real estate investors for real estate investors, because they experienced it, right? They're former Goldman Sachs investors. They know what they're doing, and they wanted to bring more access to more people. So we really care about our investors. We don't want to just say figure it out by yourself. We're here to help along the way as well, which is really, really awesome. And that's one sense of community, but now we have investment clubs that are actually new to the platform, which brings a whole nother angle to community, which I really, really like. So yeah, cool. And so bringing up the clubs, I like you mentioned, my investment club is Fractionalize, right? And so I know you've hadn't had too much experience with it, but I mean, from what you saw, like what do you think about the investment club side of Mogul?
It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. I do recognize a couple of the members from my real estate group, the Gator that I mentioned earlier on. And what's really cool about it too is that not only are all the members making money from their individual investments, but within the club, as people bring in more money, there's additional money that is distributed out. So as more people bring in money, more money is distributed. So you get those additional benefits as well. And my brother-in-law, he's already signed up for the club. I'm not sure if he invested money yet. He just joined, but I was able to show him my account and show him, like, look, I'm already getting money from people that are bringing money in. And this is on top of returns that I'm getting from real estate. Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, it's there's no cost to it. It's free to sign up. Why not make more money by being part of a group? It just makes sense, because you're going to invest anyway, so you might as well make more money by being part of a group when there's no additional cost, no time commitment, no fee at all. And then you could also interact, comments, and kind of get to know people. So
yeah, definitely.
To me, it makes sense. Like it's almost like like we're all in this together. We're all benefiting from it, not only from the returns, but once again from everyone just bringing money in. As you normally would, you might as well make more money, right? And
exactly.
And to me, it just makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll go a little deeper on that real quick. Just so what he's talking about is that there's a revenue share. So any investments that come through by the members of that club, in Fractionalize's case, 2% of that is actually distributed back to the member. So being a club member is pretty much you're getting paid just to invest in real estate, really. And so that's really awesome. To kind of give an example, the best way I can explain it, say there's two members in the club. One member invested $30,000. One member invested $70,000 to equal $100,000. Right? The investor that invested $30,000 gets 30% of that 2% or whatever the revenue share is for that club, and then the one that invested $70,000 gets 70% of that 2%. So obviously, as the club gets bigger, that share, is a little smaller, but it's something that's just kickback for just being there, being a part of that community, being part of a club. And yeah, we can socialize, talk to each other about the things that are going on within Mogul or within, other investments that we're dealing with outside of Mogul. we're very, that's really what I want. That's what I want everyone to be able to just come together and just learn from each other as well and get value from one another from different strategies, whether they're gators or lenders that are speaking with other lenders, or wholesalers that are, or buyers that are need other resources from other people. We can all come together and network and provide value to one another while we're passively building the portfolio through fractional real estate. But yeah, it's really, really awesome. Really excited about it all, and I'm really excited that and happy that you're with us, Ryan, and that you're part of this. You're already speaking, like you said, speaking to your family about it as well. We got your brother in Fractionalize, so that's really exciting. One other thing I want to make sure, or I want to ask is, so obviously you've had some experience with real estate, through different avenues. I even know, I'll actually have you touch on it. I know you said you were actually looking possibly at another position as a lawyer in the real estate industry. Is that correct? And if so, like, can you might be a little bit off in what you're doing?
So funny enough, it got shut down.
Oh, it got shut down?
So I'll explain why. So
yeah, no worries.
I was looking to see how I could use my law license for additional income, specifically in real estate.
Yeah.
But one of the issues with that, though, and this is not for everyone, but with me specifically, is I wouldn't want there to be any kind of conflict of interest. So making sure that I would never get a client or do any type of business that is also related to my regular job, my regular W.
Yeah.
But not only that, I was thinking about it and going back to it. If I was to give any type of legal advice in real estate outside of my W, and God forbid I screwed up or whatever the case is, then that client could go after me specifically. And I would have to make sure I have malpractice insurance that would cover me. But at the same time, it's just, I don't want additional headaches. I was reminding myself that the whole reason I'm doing Mogul to begin with was for passive income and for passive investing. So doing additional law work, outside my W-2, it's kind of just going back to doing additional work.
Yeah.
Since I love my job and I love what I do, I don't want to feel like I have to do any additional law work outside of it. And I just wouldn't want anything to get messy at all.
No, yeah,
especially since I am licensed, I don't want anything to get messy. I have never practiced real estate law too, so I would be brand new in real estate. I mean, of course, I could look over contracts and things like that. I do contracts for a living, but at the same time, I've never actually practiced real estate law. And just out of respect for my boss and my job, and they're incredibly amazing, I wouldn't want anything I wouldn't want to get too busy with real estate law and having issues with that might affect my W-2. So maybe down the road I can, maybe I might consider it, but I wouldn't actually practice real estate law.
I respect you for that. Definitely cool.
Yeah.
But you like your job, you like where you're at, in your law career. So I definitely appreciate that. I respect that a lot. So, for other real estate investors, that are actively investing, wholesaling, fix and flip, what kind of advice do you have for maybe a newbie or someone that's just struggling with real estate in general?
Yeah, so it all depends on what that particular individual is looking to do. If they have a full-time job, if they have a family, it's dependent on where they're at, in life. I would say, at first, usually people go down the wholesaling route when they first get into real estate. And, wholesaling can be great, but like I said, it can be a grind as well. I mean, especially if you don't have a team, if you're not hiring virtual assistants. So yes, it's a great entryway, but also there's cons to it. And just like anything else, there's pros and cons. I definitely recommend networking as much as possible. Go into any local real estate investment groups, networking groups, if they're available. If not, online. But try multiple things. There's nothing wrong with trying wholesaling for a little bit. And if you don't like it, then go to fix and flipping, private money lending, whatever the case is. But it's okay to try multiple things to see what's going to work for you. I think one of the biggest things that I realized when I got into real estate is that people were saying, oh yeah, it's passive. Not really. It really is not passive. I mean, unless you're doing, Mogul and fractional investing, it's still a little bit of work. You still want to look over the documents and make sure it's something that you want to do. But there is still some type of work into it. So I think, people shouldn't have an expectation that they could do very passive real estate investing. That's just not the case. In fact,
Yeah.
that could be pretty dangerous if you're not going to do your due diligence to learn about the investments and to comp and to do the underwriting and to, network with everyone, because it's all about who you know. And so I would just recommend for anyone out there is just to try multiple things, do some research, watch some YouTube videos, go to local real estate events, networking events. There's a ton of free events as well, and talk to people and see what they did to start in real estate. And, if you're someone that, that's similar to me that has a full-time gig, whether you like your job or not, just know that your priority is probably that W-2 to pay the bills. So you want to make sure that you're being smart and strategic about it, that you're not going to burn out, and that if you do want to do real estate full-time, that you make sure it is the proper timing. I've seen a lot of people within Gator and other groups that quit their full-time job and went straight into real estate too early, and then they got burnt out, or they didn't have enough information and they got into deals that they shouldn't have, and then they regretted leaving their job. And then some people left at the proper timing. And so whenever that is, that's different for everyone. But I would say the main thing is just to make sure that you look at different avenues and you talk to people, try it out, take care of your priorities. And then if it's something that you're passionate about and you have the time to do it, you can grow that. And then if you want to do it full time, you'll just know when that right time is. And you could have help along the way as well. Network, have a mentor. Sometimes you should pay for groups. Sometimes you should do free groups. You need the information and you need to meet people.
Yeah, and I'm gonna double down on that, Ryan. You're saying sometimes people just leave their jobs way too soon. Like, if you have a job that pays your bills, keep it. Like, it's not a bad thing, like, having a job. I don't like my W-2 very much, but it pays the bills and it does well. I enjoy it enough. And I'm not gonna say I hate it or nothing like that, but like, it pays the bills. I'm very grateful for it. Go out and network with people, learn from what they've done and their mistakes, learn the material, get confident in it, and figure out what you want to do in real estate. Because like you were saying, there's tons of different things. There's tons of different avenues to go in real estate, and you might have shiny object syndrome, but test things out. Take 3, 4, 5 months with one thing. You don't like it, okay, go test something else out. If that's for you, just go gung-ho on that, fully sprint, and then you start seeing success. That's, you start seeing success where you can actually replace your W-2 income. Then, consider, okay, I can leave my W-2 job, but, don't do it right away, because that's just a total mistake. You can run into many different headaches and hiccups along the way that might just not be great for you. You might just be in a worse place mentally, stress, and then might just tumble and get out of real estate completely because it was just way too much for you. Then find a different job at that point. But just take your time. That's why I've told you, that's why I'm so passionate about fractional real estate, because regardless if you crash and burn, doing wholesaling or fix and flipping, whatever, you still have a portfolio building for you. And then, so you still have some cash flow going and build it. And eventually, once you do find out what you're doing, you're also going to have this portfolio that's been cash flowing, that's been, bringing you income, and that's been growing. And maybe that's the thing that replaces your income, and gives you that freedom to just explore.
And to even add to that more, in my opinion, fractionalized investing and Mogul, but fractionalized investing, generally speaking, is probably the easiest, most passive, and risk-free way to get into real estate. You only have to invest $250, at least $250. You can diversify multiple properties, as you add more to it. It is completely, or I shouldn't say completely, but it is the most passive way I could figure on doing real estate. Because all you have to do is, look at the properties, of course, do your due diligence, but that's it. You're not trying to negotiate with the seller. You're not trying to physically visit the property. You're not trying to make posts and trying to network with a whole bunch of people. And you're still getting really great returns. And to me, it's, I can't say for certain it's safer than stocks. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but over the long period of time, it is less volatile. And it's nice that, no matter what happens in the market, most likely you're going to be getting that monthly check still, that rental check, most likely. As opposed to stocks, if you're in certain stocks that don't give out dividends, you're relying on capital appreciation most of the time, unless you're doing a very specific strategy of like shorting stocks or whatever. You're kind of betting that the stock is going to go a certain way in the future. But with Mogul and fractionalized investing, you're pretty much getting that monthly income and then that capital appreciation potentially in the future. And so to me, I mean, if you have $250 or just a little bit of money, yes, you can invest this. You're a real estate investor. You get the tax benefits. You could deduct a lot of your expenses. Meanwhile, at the same time, trying other real estate strategies, or maybe just do fractional. That's it. And keep your W-2. You could still get amazing returns and build that long-term portfolio without a lot of the risk or the time for other types of strategies. And so, like, I would recommend to anyone to start off with fractionalized investing, Mogul, or if you want to choose another platform, whatever you want to do. But to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, tried wholesaling, the gateway into real estate, and to me, this is a lot easier. Obviously, yeah, you may not make as much money, but wholesaling, there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of time, it's a grind. There could be certain fraud and scams, and it can get really messy really fast. Here, the work is done for us. I mean, Joey and Alex, being part of Goldman Sachs, doing this professionally, billions of dollars invested. They've done a lot of the work. Yeah, $10 billion. I can't even imagine what that's like. And for them to take their expertise and to do all that work, so you don't have to find that deal, you don't have to negotiate, you don't have to borrow money, you don't have to do any of that work. You literally could just do a couple of clicks on the mouse, and you are an investor and a landlord among other investors. And you don't have to risk a ton of money. Like I said, it's $250. I'm not trying to show, kind of just throw out all these plugs, like invest about $250, but it literally is just $250. Because if you try to do fix and flip it and try to buy another property, you got to worry about loans, you got to worry about the bank, private money loans, interest rates, you got to worry about the rehab. There's just so much involved in it. Here, to me, it's a no-brainer. It really is.
100%. And I don't know if you would agree with this. Another way to look at fractional real estate is like a savings account, really. Like instead of having it in your bank savings account, making I don't know, a penny a year. That's how much I made. Instead of doing that, you can put it into real estate. Make a lot higher yields. Have that cash flow, and then get tax benefits with that. So I think it's really awesome.
With the caveat, though, I will say, of course, speak to your CPA or financial advisor. But the money that people put in a savings account, that's extremely liquid. They could take it out anytime.
That's true.
To do a fractional investing, you just got to be, if it's money that you need next week, probably not a good idea to do it. Oh, I would, I don't want to give advice, but I would say, of course, speak to an accountant, CPA, financial advisor. But I would say, you'd want to make sure that's money that you most likely won't need on a short-term basis. Now, I know Mogul's already coming out with a secondary market. I know it's not out yet, but I know we'll eventually have the ability to sell our shares early before selling the property onto a secondary market.
Yeah.
So I know that's, in the future, obviously we don't have too much information about that. But the money that I invest in Mogul, I make sure that it's not for an emergency fund. That's not something I needed right away. That's something that I truly could put away for a couple years. So yeah, I mean, savings accounts are important. And it's definitely important to have your emergency funds and so forth. But, it wouldn't make sense to put a ton of money into savings if you don't need to. Especially if you don't need that money right away. There are obviously alternatives out there.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that input. Definitely. Because I missed that point. Yeah, if you need your funds, like you said, tomorrow, next week, maybe have it liquid, ready to go. But if you're just letting it sit there, you're not doing anything with it. Some people like doctors, like a lawyer, you're making pretty good income, and you're just letting it sit there. You can have it working for you. Instead of just doing nothing. Last thing I really want to just ask you, Ryan, is so for an investor that's kind of looking at fractional real estate, just learning about it, maybe they're on the teeter-totter. Should I do it? Should I not? What would you say to them? What kind of advice would you give them to about that?
Do it. I'll give more advice, but yeah, absolutely do it. Kind of like what we were saying before, it's a very, very low barrier of entry, $250. I feel like it's imprinted in our brains now. I keep saying it over and over again. Pretty much you could diversify. It's a tangible asset that you're investing in. It's a physical house. It's something that you can get great tax benefits with. Of course, speak to an accountant, a tax advisor, but you can deduct your expenses. You're going to be a small business owner. You're going to have your own LLC if you want to. So what I did, like I kind of knew about fractional investing, but what I did, especially with Mogul, is I actually watched YouTube videos of Alex doing interviews, and I read up on him, and I looked at fractional investing as well. So the way that Alex explained it, talking to people about, on Fox or Forbes and, the different YouTube videos, it just really made sense to me. I kind of knew I was going in that direction, but it really kind of just solidified it. And to me, I was just like, well, I'm getting better returns on a long-term basis, better returns than the stock market with usually it's less risk. I would say for the most part, definitely less volatility and more tax benefits. I'm not hoping that a stock goes up or goes down depending on my strategy. I'm getting that consistent monthly income and the tax benefits. I mean, even just the tax benefits alone, that I was able to do deductions on my mortgage. I was able to do deductions on my car, my phone, my internet, all these kind of different deductions when I spoke to my CPA. I couldn't get that when I was invested, when I had, stocks invested. Now, granted, I still have stocks. I personally, I prefer a diverse portfolio. Maybe that's not for everyone.
I'm with you. I agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. So I still have my regular 401k, my current 401k with my job in stocks, and then I still have a little bit of money on the side. But other than that, to me, it makes a lot more sense. With the stocks, for instance, I was constantly doing research. I mean, I used to do that professionally. It was still a grind. You still had to research the company, and you're still betting, once again, on what the stock price is going to be in the future. And even the big guys on Wall Street, they get it wrong. So what about me, someone that doesn't have access to all the data that they have, someone that doesn't do this 80 hours a week like they do on Wall Street? I'm not going to try to bet against a lot of those guys. I'm not going to try to beat them when they get it wrong themselves. So I just felt like it just made sense. I mean, it shows, the data shows that real estate goes up over time, like we were talking about before. It's a tangible property, and diversifying it and just, a little bit of money in different properties if you want to, or you could do a lot more. You definitely have a lot of options. So for me, it was really doing that research, kind of just hitting home with that. And I definitely recommend, if anyone is, still not sure, reach out to Vincent. I mean, obviously you're very knowledgeable. You're right in with the program. Reach out to him. But also, checking out Mogul on YouTube, like doing a search, Mogul Club YouTube, and just seeing all the videos that Alex has done. I mean, the credibility is ridiculous. Goldman Sachs is like one of the biggest investment firms on Wall Street. Like, they are up there, and I know this from being a stockbroker and financial advisor. And so, absolutely, he's credible and knowledge. And they worked in real estate as well. It's not like they were just doing stocks or something else. Like, they specifically worked in real estate, looking how to underwrite properties. So you're getting pretty much the best of the best. The top dogs that were doing this for institutions, now making this available for us. So that was a point that really just hit home for me. And I was just like, it doesn't make sense for me not to invest in Mogul Club and fractional investing. It's just like, once again, I mean, like when I was trying to do stocks, I was spending a lot of time in research. So now I'm getting better returns with more tax benefits, spending less time. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And of course, too, like I was saying before, I keep on saying this because I'm an attorney, but still speak to an accountant, CPA, tax advisor, your own attorney, wherever the case is, making sure that the strategy works for you. Because what I'm doing may not be what is best for you, Vincent, or for anyone else. I know it works for me because I do have my team. I have my legal background. I have my background from stocks and different investments. I also have a CPA specifically that works in real estate as well. And speaking with him and just networking. I mean, I didn't do this at the start. I built this up after over a year of speaking to people within real estate and speaking to different kind of professionals to make sure that I was doing the right thing. And so, I recommend just networking, reaching out to professionals, people involved in it, YouTube, looking at the different kind of articles, and then honestly, just reaching out to you, Vincent. I mean, You're always available. You're always posting about it, and I think it's just a great segue to get right into Mogul.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and another great way I'll put out there is like you said, there's no cost to join our investment club, Fractionalize. There's no cost to do that, but you can get inside. There's a social feed now where you can post and interact in that way. So that might also be a great way for people just to kind of interact with the community and myself, other than just the YouTube videos as well. On top of, Mogul does monthly webinars, so if you want to directly speak with the founders and actually get more deep into questions with them, answer those live, and kind of just go over a recap of what's happened recently, certain properties, markets, and honestly recent news that affects the real estate market in general. So those are all great ways to really learn, get more knowledgeable about Mogul, fractional real estate, and see if it's something that's for you, which I believe, to me, that it could be for everyone. There's a space for everyone in fractional real estate. So I really appreciate all that, Ryan. Before we wrap everything up, I just want to, if you don't mind, how can people maybe reach out to you, just if they have any questions, or just maybe they have a deal that they need some funds for, or just kind of want to reach out and speak to you.
Yeah, so Facebook, I mean, my name, it should be on the screen, Ryan Treulieb over there. I'm within the Fractionalize group as well. I also do have an Instagram. It's Kingdom Lending. I'm not really a tech guy, to be honest, or too much into social media specifically, but that's the best way, to reach out to me. And I would say, if people have questions, like the most knowledge that I have is really just being a full-time W-2 employee, being busy with wife and kids, and just understanding how to manage that. I mean, that's really where my experience is from, because I've only been doing real estate, like I said, for the past year, and I've tried multiple things. And I would say the things that I learned the most is finding out what works on my schedule and how to best manage my time. Because I wasn't really incredibly successful in wholesaling or multifamily. I wasn't. But it was because those were things that I was not really supposed to do. It didn't work with my lifestyle. I wasn't passionate about it. So I have more knowledge about like what not to do in a sense.
That's good. That's good.
And so, if people are struggling with that and picking time, and if they want to spend more time with the kids and their spouse, and how to deal with all that, I could talk about my experiences. I can tell you, like, when I was doing the wholesaling, there were times where my kids were like, "Daddy, we never see you." And what's crazy is I work from home. I work remotely on my W-2 job, and I barely left. And I would work a typical 8:30, 9 o'clock into 5 or 5:30 in my W-2, and immediately jump into wholesaling and making phone calls and sending out emails, or multifamily and looking at the properties. And I was just like, it's ridiculous, the timing. Meanwhile, I was missing, reading bedtime stories to my kids, or just spending quality time with the family. And I just knew, I was like, you know what, if I wanted to do wholesaling, I could do that in the future. I could do multifamily in the future. Yes, I'm missing out on opportunities right now, but to me, the bigger opportunity is my family, because they only, they're grown up, right? They're only going to be this age once. I could always do wholesaling in the future. I could always do other things in the future. And so it was priorities for me. Now, I'm able to do that, though, because, I do have a great job, and I have, a great support system. And so it just, once again, it works for me. And I know that not everyone's in that situation. But, if people have questions about that and things like that, I mean, that's really where I can give advice and help out people. And
Definitely.
Love to do that. As far as the lending specifically, I'll be honest with you. Me personally, I lend on only certain deals, and it's with specific borrowers. So if people need funds for that, I would be able to connect them to other lenders. It just wouldn't be my money specifically, just because I found my small group of people that I do it with.
Gotcha.
And lending now is such a small portion of my business and of my investments. So I really, honestly, I do like maybe 2-3 deals at most a year, because it's just really with specific people, and that's how I maintain it. But me and you being part of Gator, there's over 11,000. I think maybe there's 12,000 lenders now. So I know that if people need funding, they can come to you or come to me, whatever. And I know that, most likely you could find a lender that's willing to look at the deal.
100%.
So yeah, would love to help out with that for sure.
Awesome. Find him on Facebook, Ryan Treulieb, last name Treulieb. What was on Instagram again? Kingdom what?
King. Well, actually, I'm so bad that I don't even know the name. I don't even
No way.
I think I changed it recently. Okay, kingdom.ji.capital. Yes.
Got it.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Oh,
Awesome.
and a little plug for the audience too. Because it's obviously I'm more passionate about family. But a lot of people ask me, how did I get Kingdom? How did I get JI? So Kingdom is based on Kingdom of God. So I'm a Christian myself. JI is the initials of my children, Julie and Isaac, and then capital to let people know that I'm a lender. So my advice for people is just like, don't forget why you're doing this in the first place. I mean, yeah, we all want to make money, but why do we want to make that money? For me, it's to be able to spend more time with the family, to create that legacy, something to pass off to them. And so I'm reminded every single day. I mean, I know I forgot my Instagram name, but every single time I'll pull up Instagram, I see that, or my businesses are named after that. I know I'm doing this for the kids. And, yes, I want to make as much money as possible, but I want to spend time with my family as well. So there's, where's my priorities? It's them. And honestly, I'm so grateful for fractional investing and for Mogul and for you, Vincent, because I actually have a lot less stress and a lot more time with the family because I saw your 30-second video. Like, seriously, it really has changed my family.
Awesome. That means a lot. That means a lot, and touches me for sure because, like you said, you're able to just kind of just focus on what matters to you, your family, and I think that's beautiful, man. That's really, really awesome. I think a lot of people can relate to that. So, thank you for sharing that for sure, man. Ryan, and it's been really awesome. I really appreciate your time again. Definitely reach out. He's a great guy. It was wonderful having you, man. And definitely look forward to more in the future.
Fractionalize fam, I hope you enjoyed the very first podcast episode of Fractionalize with my special friend Ryan Treulieb. Go ahead, if you need to ask him any questions, want to reach out to him, his contact information will be in the show notes. But it was a pleasure, and I'm so grateful that you were here today to listen to this and be more knowledgeable about fractional real estate and what we have going on at Mogul and my investment club, Fractionalize. So I hope you have a great one and hope to see you again soon. Peace and love.